that autistic people said. So we're not all the same. Autistics are as diverse and unique as everyone else. The spectrum doesn't mean less autistic to more autistic. It is different combination of traits. I may look high functioning, but I am working infinitely harder every single minute. So those were things autistic people said, some examples.
And I think those quotes, kind of, if we just think about it thematically, also resonated with this idea that ability and skill varies depending on the environment that somebody's in. So
that will come up.
It will, but this idea of the spectrum being a dynamic piece that's influenced by the environment was also part of this kind of theme. And I think it's so important for us as people who are here to learn and think. It's that environmental piece is going to come up over and over again in many of the themes as we talk. All right. So these are, if we're thinking about that same theme and we're starting to look at the responses from the autism community, so not autistic individuals, these people wanted us to know that autism varies so much across people, and everyone's experience is so different. The spectrum is very wide, and it creates problems for families whose loved ones are on opposite ends of the spectrum. So this idea of support needs may vary, and that sometimes those support needs are at odds with one another, even in a given family dynamic, and that not all autism looks alike. Everybody is different and has different abilities and strengths. So these family members who are representing individuals with various support needs really were still coming from this perspective of autism is not one defined thing. It is kind of this different experience, this different way of interacting, this different way of being.
Yes, and that idea of it doesn't just range from less autistic to more autistic.
Yes.
It ranges in all these different aspects of somebody's profile.
Yes.
You know, there could be autistic people are more likely to have co-occurring medical conditions. Autistic people might be more likely to have other intellectual differences, social differences, communication differences, motor differences, sensory differences. And within our society, within education, within the world, some of those differences, because of the way the world is set up, require even more support, help, assistance, are less built in to everyday environments.
Right.
And that gets really complicated. So it's messy. We want it to be black and white and defined, but it's very messy. Should we go to the next theme?
I think so. So we're going to present the themes that the autistic people identified first, and then we'll look at the broader autism community afterwards. So one of the things that the autistic people kind of throughout their responses, a universal theme that came to the forefront for them was this idea of they were really focused on acceptance over awareness. So yes, wanting people to be aware of what autism truly is. It's this diverse presentation that we've just talked about. But once you're aware of those differences, the acceptance piece is that awareness isn't enough anymore, that we need acceptance, we need understanding, and we need environments that adapt with us, not expectation that we have to constantly adapt to everything else, which is, again, that environmental interaction piece coming up again.
Yes. Awareness isn't enough. Allyship requires action. So people who want to call themselves an ally should be acting and empowering, not just saying it.
Right.
Action over words, I'm going to say.
And I think, I know we don't have the exemplar on your screen, but there was someone who was specifically saying wearing a t-shirt during the month of April is not enough to be an ally. Like a cute little catchy slogan on a shirt doesn't prove that you're here to actually support me and help me navigate this world in ways that are comfortable for me.
And similar to that, awareness, it's not about special events. It's about changing daily assumptions and norm, and it's ongoing work, not a gesture. So just like along the lines of that t-shirt, it's the ongoing work. And people who are here, professionals working in the field, parents living it, I mean, they know that too. I would suspect that the autism community would agree highly with this because they're living it every day as well.
Exactly. But it really is this call to action that we know that if we're going to create change, we have to be willing to put the work in. And our autistic community members are looking for us to show up and be part of that relationship.
Just an equal partnership.
Yes.
Nothing more, nothing less. You know, I will take some of the burden and you will too. It's a two-way street.
It is a two-way street. All right, so kind of keeping in theme with that two-way street idea and this relationship, another piece that came out was that communication differences are real and they're mutual. So what does that mean? It means communication breakdowns happen between two people. It's not one person's not communicating effectively and the other person's just sitting over here waiting for that person to learn how to do that thing.
Yeah, I love this one because so often, so much time is spent trying to teach autistic children and adults the norms of how to communicate in everyday life. And the total burden for change is on the autistic person. What we think about instead is the idea of cross-cultural understanding. So a big step up would be, sure, we can teach autistic people about norms because that does create predictability and understanding of things that otherwise may be very chaotic and unpredictable. But we should also teach people who aren't autistic about other forms of communication that autistic people might use, because the reality is they're going to have to exist in the world together, and neither group will be able to put on an act of the other one for their life. It's an impossible task. In a moment, someone might be able to put on that act. Over a lifetime, that will break you down and cause, we have lots of research on this, it will cause mental health challenges to put on that act for your entire life. So we want to emphasize that mutual communication. I like that.
Yeah. So this idea that there's no right way to communicate, that sharing of that experiences you're talking about and both learning from one another. And this idea of communication differences are not deficits. So just really bringing to light that point that you made, the community is saying those same things very clearly. And then this idea of stop blaming autistics for every communication breakdown.
Right.
And that communication is two-way street. And so I think the kind of the examples that you gave around that are very clearly illustrated in these exemplars that they've offered us in the survey.
I do love that theme. So next theme is autism is not something to fix. We're not broken. We don't need fixing. Autism is not a trend, a tragedy, or something to fix. It's a different way of experiencing, processing, and interacting with the world. And I don't want to care. I do want to be understood.
Yeah, and I think there is, you kind of see how these themes are separate from one another, but they really do weave together. And how when we're talking about a autistic person's experience and they're trying to share that with the greater community, they're really talking about kind of what it feels like to them, but also that existence within the context or the environment that they're in and what they're needing from that environment as well.
Yeah,
Are you ready to move on?
I think I will move on.
Okay. And so we have, I believe, one last theme from the autistic community. And this one is interesting because I think it gets to it, well, they're all related. They're all related, but it gets to this idea of sometimes what others see is not really representative of how somebody's experiencing autism and their way of being in the world. And so the theme is this idea that there's an invisible effort. A lot of the conversation was around sensory realities, and that other people often overlook
Mm,
the intensity of that.
this one resonates a lot for me. Um, I had a very intense period of my life
Mm.
where I was trying to exist in an environment that didn't line up with any of my needs. And from the outside, someone in that environment would have thought that I was probably thriving.
Mm.
Um, but every day I would barely make it into my house before I just exploded, kicked through walls, doors, broke something, smashed something, all out explosion, or would need complete darkness, complete silence, and complete stillness, really. And I would sleep anywhere from 18 to 26 hours. So if you want to talk about the effort and the
Yeah.
true overwhelm of it, sleeping 18 to 26 hours is not a norm for me. So
I think that
yeah,
the first quote really resonates with what you're saying, that we're not giving you a hard time. You weren't wanting to come in and destroy things in your home or explode.
I'm sorry, home.
We're having a hard time, right? So oftentimes these things, whether they're interactive differences where somebody looks like they're being defiant or maybe non-compliant or argumentative,
Or
or you have
aggressive.
somebody who's engaging in behavior that's could be perceived as aggressive or dangerous. Those things are very real for autistic people, but what autistic people are telling us is we don't want to be doing them either. And it's actually just a representation of how hard things are for me at this moment. So it's not, I'm trying to be difficult. This is really hard.
Yeah, and these other quotes too, masking comes at a cost. It can lead to burnout, anxiety, and loss of identity. The toll so many things take. I often care deeply, but don't have the energy to engage. That one resonates too for me. I love my family, my mother, my father, my brother, my sister-in-law, my nephew. I love them, I trust them, but there are times when like I did not go to their Easter celebration. I couldn't. I didn't have, it's not even about them. It's just all the themness around me. And it's not that I don't enjoy them, but no matter who it is, there's going to be a lot of noise, a lot of conversation. It's going to be a disruption to my usual routine, which was probably the big one on that particular day. And it's going to be a lift. And I make the lift as much as I can, but I can't do it all the time. Poor Easter, I think it suffers the most for me because I've been through all the other holidays. And so then I'm like, I'll be alone and reflecting on this Easter.
And
But there's a lot of invisible effort that on the outside just looks like she doesn't, she doesn't care. Like she can't come down here for a little bit and hang out. They don't think like that. My family doesn't think like that, luckily for me. But it could easily look like that. And on a day-to-day basis, it
Yeah.
can look like that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more going on always.
Well, and I think just even that kind of knowledge and that preparation for what the cost is going to be for you. I think a lot of us think about, oh my gosh, what do I have to prepare for something like an Easter celebration or a family holiday? But what we look at preparing, our list is probably far shorter than what your kind of, all the things that you're considering around that.
Hmm.
I don't want to miss that second point that we talked about, the masking one though, because I think it is something that came out many different ways in our thematic analysis. And again, the people who are answering this survey are individuals who are capable of answering the survey. But this idea of masking and trying to fit in or project a self that doesn't reflect who they are and what the burden of that is something that's really prominent within the community. And I think people are much more aware now of the mental health implications of it. But if we did sub themes in this, we would be looking at, it's not just as easy as saying masking is hard. We don't want people to do it
Right.
because it creates mental health issues. We need to look at masking much more nuanced than that and understand that some people mask purely for safety, and it's not safe for them not to try to suppress things that are natural and put on that act and what that is like for them, right? We also know that some people engage in masking because it allows them to operate in environments or relationships that they want or value, but it still comes at a cost for them. Like masking it's very real, and we want to make sure that people have a place somewhere that they can take that mask off and be who they are authentically in the world. That's a very important point that came through.
Yes. And, the big goal, the ideal, the utopia is a world where no one has to mask at all. And we just understand that different brains need different things, and we all have expectations that everyone will kind of do it a little bit differently than us. But we're not there yet. So these complex things happen. And you're right. It's not as simple as, ooh, I know I'm masking. I need to stop for my own health.
Right. So I think, I mean, those are big themes that emerge. There's more
For
that came
autistic people.
for the autistic people.
Specifically.
But this idea of interaction is a two-way street. Environments can be disabling. Communication breakdowns aren't all my fault. That I do still feel like I need to go out in the world and pretend to be something that I'm not, and that's difficult. I think, if we look across those, we
And
get
that there's more to all of this than anyone can see.
yes,
Like
yes,
the
yes, yes.
effort and strain and fatigue and mental health implications of doing all these things on a regular basis is so much more than people can usually see.
Yes. And so I think, there are 5 short themes that we pulled out, but they really help us understand the complexity for the complexity for the person in interactions with other people and environments in general. It helps us understand that this isn't, as you said, a simple black and white, this is my experience. My experience has to occur in context. Okay.
Let's see what the autism community said.
Okay.
So how exactly did we define autism community? Who could respond?
So we asked anybody who was not autistic, either formally identified or self-identified. Those were the people in the first category. Anybody else who was involved in the autism community, so caregivers, parents, family members, teachers, educators, neighbors. It didn't matter that we just wanted these people to not have been identified as autistic. And it was interesting because when we put the survey out, because it's such a simple survey, people were like, I want to answer for both because I'm a mother and autistic. And we're like, but everything you're going to answer is from that autistic perspective. We were really trying to get the perspective of individuals who were not autistic. So the me's of the world.
The Amy group.
The people who care deeply about autistic individuals, but do not have that neurotype.
Okay,
That is who we were hoping to capture.
perfect. Let's look at their first theme. They responded to the same question.
Exact same question.
So the first theme that came up was systems are failing families. Support, not pity, is needed.
Yeah, and I think that this is really interesting because this speaks to them understanding the complexity of the experience of the individual and the support that's needed, but also the support that they need as families to be able to show up for an individual who's autistic, right?
Yes, and of course, this, well, this is probably a worldwide problem, but this will hold a higher bias to the country you're living in.
Right.
And some countries will do it better than others.
Yes.
Some regions within countries will do it better than others. So if you want to add in the chat what it's like in your context, in terms of systems and support for autism, we'd love to know. We'll tell you what we found in our survey. So social services and schools do not adequately support parents and families. We are navigating physical and mental health impacts, financial impacts, career impacts. Our isolation is not because our kids are broken. It is because we have little to no structural and systemic supports for our families. And the support we need is not pity. It is respite care, schools that actually understand, accessible playgrounds, healthcare.
So these are families who are really echoing the complexity of the autistic experience in that first themes and saying, this is where the support is needed. And we need systems that are equipped to provide support in all of those areas.
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty big mismatch
Yes.
right now.
And again, anybody could be answering these, but we do know many of the family members who were answering did have children or loved ones who had higher support needs. So they were feeling like they were trying to help kind of make that bridge for their autistic loved one, but they were doing it by themselves and they weren't getting a lot of structural support.
And for our own context, I'm not surprised that this came up as number one, because realistically, we have had a lot of cuts in our funding. So the system has never been
Great,
but it is more strained than ever before. Yeah. What else?
So, I mean, these families care deeply and they really are centering on their autistic loved ones or their autistic students or whatnot. And so one of the things that rose to the top as we looked at their responses was they really felt strongly that the broader community needed to center on the lived experience of autistic people and listen to autistic voices. So as opposed to looking towards supposed experts or academics or institutions and organizations, they wanted to elevate the voices of the autistic individual.
Yeah, the only way to understand autism is by learning from the experiences of autistic people. People should listen to the opinions and feelings of autistic individuals. Those thoughts are valid. And to listen to autistic people over neurotypical people.
And I think one of the other things that came out, which isn't so clear here, which is interesting. I guess maybe we could have picked a different exemplar, but they were talking about not just listening to spoken words, but observing individuals, watching them, understanding how they communicate and interact in the world and using that information to inform understanding too, because we know that there's a wide breadth of experience for autistic individuals, and certainly somebody who has access to mouth words who can share individual experience is extremely important. But the person who's not able to use mouth words, who's navigating their world in a primarily sensory motor fashion, is their information they can provide us is just as valid and valuable
Yes. And sometimes more, depending on
for them.
right, well, depending on the profile of your child.
Right.
So, yes, so listen to autistic people and listen to a wide range of autistic people.
Mm.
I like that. Some people are adding in the chat things about systems in their country, which is great. I think we have a lack, I think there's a lack of education on systems of communication.
Mm.
Maybe there's visuals, but it's a tough day-to-day job. I'm really summarizing and probably missing things. That's in Chile. The schools are tough. Support is tough. It's a lot of money to invest. The system is not friendly. Things like that. So yes, I would suspect there's issues in every system. I'll try to look at that more the next time Amy's talking. Did I switch the slide or am I still on the one?
I think we're moving on. We centered on lived experience. So we're moving to our next theme.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, and again, I think what's so interesting is these are individuals who are not autistic. They don't share that neurotype, but they're people who care deeply about autistic individuals. And you can see that their themes mirror the autistic theme, right?
Yes.
So here they're really focusing on environments and expectations and just kind of design of environment needs to change to be more supportive for individuals. And I think many of them were talking and providing distinct experiences of trying to engage in different activities and environments with their students or their loved ones. And so you can see some of their examples that they offered here. You're laughing.
I think they're great responses.
Designing spaces and systems in an exclusive manner would benefit everybody. So having quieter stores, less visual clutter. Jacqueline might actually go in a store if that existed.
Yes.
I don't know if this is available to all of you where you are, but Jacqueline almost exclusively shops online and has things like her groceries delivered to her.
My grocery delivery guy is the best, you know. He's friends with my dog. He's awesome. It's probably one of my closest relationships. But that, yeah, that is an absolute game changer for me. Not just avoiding the store.
Yes.
Like the store has its issues of flickery fluorescent lighting, a lot of sound, a lot of activity, a lot of smells, some good, some not. Um, a lot of people, a lot of visual clutter. But really, being in that environment and then trying to organize what do I need? Where do I need to go to get those things? Like carrying out the process.
The executive functioning
If
in context.
if I could go into an empty store, I could do it and carry out the process. When I go into a real live operating store, which is how they always are when you're allowed in them, um, don't break in. Everything becomes so chaotic that I'm like, I don't need anything but eggs. And then it's like a wasted outing anyway. So being able to organize myself and pick the things online. And now they even communicate with me via text message only. If something isn't there or if they have a question about my order, I love my grocery store now.
But isn't it interesting that the autism community recognized what a barrier that is for many autistic individuals? And so some of them are talking about going into those those places, those stores with their young children and trying to navigate it. But we're seeing how that extrapolates even to autistic adults and how challenging that can be. All right, some other themes that have emerged here.
This is the last thing. Unless we
Maybe.
missed a page.
Maybe not. No, but this last bit here, we didn't do this.
Oh, yes.
Yes. We're navigating translations here. Um, the world not being designed to meet somebody's needs
Right.
is massively important. And I think part of that goes back to some of the sensory components that the autistic individuals discussed in their responses. Because even as if people were listening to how you described what a grocery store feels like to you, there
This was a mild description.
it was a very mild description.
I could spend this entire hour presentation giving my feedback about grocery stores. That's how intense it is.
Okay, so from your
And
mild,
I have a great small local grocery store relative to many places.
that we call supermarkets around here, like the really large, okay. Your mild description of a grocery store. As people were listening, I'm sure they picked up on how many descriptors you used that were sensory in nature. The first thing you talked about was the flickering lights. And then you talked about the auditory piece of just kind of chaotic conversation and doors and things opening and shutting. And then you talked about smells, some of them pleasant, some of them not, right? And so what's so
I'm getting
fascinating,
so sense stained in there. I mean, it's fantastic. They have a bakery and a deli and they cook their own whole rotisserie chickens, but all of that leaves my clothes scented. And then all I can do is speed home in my car to get to rip the clothes off of me and get new ones.
because they smell.
They were scent stained.
Yes.
I hope there are good translations for these terms that I use, scent stains and such.
But I think so scents clinging to your clothing.
Yes.
So, but I think it's such an interesting thing. The world's not designed to meet these needs. Really pairs up with the last theme that we talked about from autistic individuals, which is kind of what people don't see and that sensory overwhelm. And then here, your description, like of the environment, just
Mm.
slots so nicely into that. So it's almost like these autistic responses and these autism community responses really do come together to give us a full picture of kind of those both sides.
It's a good thing. We could be great partners.
And then
This says people organizing events should not offer children random items. Those adults are likely to cause a meltdown. So that comes from a real concern that someone has experienced. There might be a autism friendly or sensory friendly iteration of some event, and there's someone handing out random fidgets, random things, but they're just,
here's your ear defenders.
yeah, it comes out of nowhere, right? So if you're going, I think what that quote really comes down to is if you're gonna do the thing, do it well. Think about the real nature of, hey, predictability matters.
Mm.
Maybe hands jutting out into the faces of kids is going to be challenging.
Mm.
People tend to focus on the very surface things like, and honestly, sometimes people focus on the wrong things. Like there's uh, a show in October that is a jack-o'-lantern carving
Oh,
pumpkins
yeah.
in the state we live in, Rhode Island. It's this beautiful display of all these artistically carved pumpkins, and you walk through, it's actually a zoo, but all of these jack-o'-lanterns are on display, lit up at night. And
Hundreds,
the
hundreds and
hundreds
hundreds.
and hundreds, dense walls of pumpkins lit up. But the sensory components that they take out are things like flashing lights, music. I think those are actually some of the fun elements.
Yeah.
I would prefer less people, more space, a more defined time frame.
Mm.
No one can wear perfume or cologne, no vending and foods being
No fried
cooked.
food.
Yeah, don't take away the sensory components of the event. Take away the external. sensory components. See, I could do another hour on designing sensory friendly events for real.
Stay tuned, part two.
So this slide is really just a summary of the slides that have come before, a little brief, executive summary of what we found from autistic people.
Yeah.
And what we found from people who are not autistic but do exist within the autism community. And listen to autistic people, respect their lived experience, build a world that includes them as they are, not one that asks them to constantly adapt. Those are our autistic themes, and it's not so different for the not autistic folks. Autistic people must be respected, understood, and centered. Families and supporters need far more systemic, practical support to make inclusion possible, and both realities must be held at the same time.
And so I think this little study that we did and these reflections give us these really beautiful like places to start to think about where to go. And one of the things that we included in, if I'm not quite sure if the handouts were shared to you or not, these slides are going to be available to you. But at the end of those slides, we have a guide to the autism level up levels, and it's not in our version of the slideshow right now, but it shows that progression from moving. How do you move from awareness to acceptance, from acceptance to appreciation, appreciation to empowerment, and empowerment to advocacy? And it has very clear kind of actionable items that you can start to think about. And if you look at the combination of these results with those actionable items, we hope that you're leaving here with one thing that you're like, I want to focus on that. I want to think about what one thing I can do.
Yeah. I
And
mean, there are so many beautiful responses in that survey, and there's so many, even in the very few that are right here, that it can get overwhelming.
yes,
I want to do it all because we all have the best of intentions, but we can start with one thing that's realistic and feasible for you
right.
and matches up with, if you're a parent or a person who is supporting autistic people in some domain, um, what is the profile or profiles of the people you support, and what would be the biggest impact? What would make the world of difference for them? So think about that.
But I think it's very clear our work can be in our environments and in our homes and in our schools. But if we can reach outside of that to inform the community, so any chance that we get to kind of help somebody outside of the inner autism circle have a better understanding is a very powerful thing.
Mm.
We're gonna take questions in just 1 minute. I do want to let people know that we have a website, and it's autismlevelup.com, and Jacqueline will probably type it in the chat because she's good like that. And on our website, we have a link to a global drive. And that global drive has many of the tools that Jacqueline and I have created. Some are around advocacy themes, like the guide to the levels and how do you move from awareness to empowerment. But some are very practical tools, like I'm going to help this young person have more predictability in their life, because that's something that we've discussed, is environments that are feeling safe and predictable for somebody. I want somebody to have more predictability. What do you have for that? Well, we have several different types of schedules that we've created. And the reason I'm saying this is, on our website, the tools are primarily in English, but that link to that global drive takes you to translations. I believe there's 15 different languages that are there. But we have quite a few tools that community members have translated into Spanish. Also some into Brazilian Portuguese.
Yes.
I don't think Portuguese proper.
I don't think so either.
Um,
Which is strange because we have a pretty large community in Rhode Island here.
Right. But we would encourage you to go to explore that. If you see something that's going to be useful for you, they are freely downloadable. We want you to use them. If you're a person who speaks English and you look at the English section of the tools and say, I really wish that was in whatever my native tongue is, my first language, and you want to translate it, all we do is ask you share it back to us so that we can format it and make it more widely available. Almost all of our things are free because, as some of you said in the chat,
Things are expensive.
and it's hard. Access is hard, especially
Yes.
around communication, right? So
There is some material in Spanish.
yes, we do. Yeah.
Yes.
But you would have to, so go to autismlevelup.com and find the little, there's a globe, right? That
Yes.
says for the
If
global
you
drive.
just scroll down, you'll see a little colorful globe graphic. And if you click on that, you will be taken to a Google Drive with
Folders by language.
folders by language. Yes. And I think we're exactly 10 minutes left, so we will yield the floor to questions now. And I can stop our share.
Yeah.
Ay, espectacular. No sé qué palabra encontrar para lo que escuchamos. La verdad que muy rico todo lo que compartieron. Nos, nos quedamos con ganas de escucharlas más. Muchísimas gracias, muchísimas gracias. Están poniendo un montón de cosas lindas en el chat. Si alguien quiere hacer una pregunta, la puede escribir y nosotros se la leemos a Jack y a Amy y las chicas la traducen, ¿sí? ¿Las pueden escribir en el chat? ¿Cuándo habrá otra charla? Preguntan. Bueno, a ver, a ver. Bueno,
Good
están poniendo
question.
todas
I don't
muy
know if we
interesantes.
have the answer.
But we
Acá
will.
hay otra pregunta. Acá hay una pregunta. A ver, para, ¿eh? Dale, decí, Cari, lo que dijo. ¿Dijo algo o no?
So we do have many of our supports available that have been translated by community members in Spanish.
I can keep talking.
Oh,
I'll get the link.
she'll
I'm gonna
find,
get the Google Drive link and put it in the chat.
she'll find the link. This survey that we used as the basis of this talk, this was our first dive into the data and our first analysis of it. So your slides in Spanish are the first slides that actually exist around it. But we intend to do much more with the information too. And so as that comes available and maybe we're generating summaries in English and things, perhaps we can send them to Actualizados, to Lorena and Maria, and maybe they can check our translation between
Sí,
Jacqueline
por
and
supuesto.
AI.
Sí, por supuesto. Nos encantaría colaborar. Hay una pregunta. Dice, mi pregunta es sobre el masking. Es un reto cuando quieren hacer amigos, pero necesitan trabajar en habilidades que al final les genera un peso emocional. ¿Qué sugerencia darían?
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be really interested to see how Jacqueline jumps in. But one of the things I'm gonna say is Jacqueline talked about interaction as a two-way street. So we want to make sure that if and when possible, that we're educating peers about different brains needing different things and people having different interactive styles so that everybody is learning about diversity. It's not just the autistic child and the neurotypical child. It's everybody needs something different, and it's just part of a diversity conversation. That is very helpful. Now, that said, especially when we get into the teenage years, sometimes we get into situations where young people really feel like they want to interact or hang out or be part of a crew, and they don't feel like they have the skill. And that's where they almost have the desire to mask. They want to learn. And that's an important thing. We want to honor that and help them understand that we're going to empower them to have those skills, but to also know that they're skills that they're kind of pulling out and using when they need to or want to, I suppose is the better answer, and that they can also not do it. And that's a really important thing. Like, you can choose to do this, you can also choose not to do this. So one is making sure that everybody kind of knows different people need different things, but then the other is you can learn about this and then it's up to you whether it serves you or not. And if you do it and it's exhausting, what's your plan for recovery from it? That's another part of it.
Yeah. I don't know what to add to it, because I think I just have too many thoughts on the topic. I have one other thought. What I will say, and it goes along with what you're saying, is we talk a lot about self-awareness, for self-understanding, for self-advocacy. So there's also a piece about trying all these things. If you are a person who wants to engage in these social interactions, try the things, see how it goes, and then understand that it might be very fatiguing.
Yeah.
And in the future, you might need to educate peers, coworkers, people in a community organization about what things you need. Most people, if you tell them what you need, most organizations, if you tell them what you need, they're willing to accept it and they're willing to make some changes. It is unrealistic to walk into an interaction where someone maybe has never interacted with an autistic person before and just expect them to know how to adapt. So the education is needed on both sides. And what's really important is that if I don't know that information for myself, there's no way I can tell a peer, a coworker, a support person, someone I want to engage in. So that self-understanding is really critical. I need to shut my door.
I have one other thought, and it's just around the interactive piece and the qualities of the interaction. Is if you're seeing somebody who is really interested in like coming together with somebody, thinking about an activity that there's a shared interest that they can come together around. So maybe it's sport, maybe it's a topic, like that might be where that very natural, comfortable interaction can emerge where the activity helps guide the interaction and it's not so much just around kind of social understanding.
There's a turkey outside
It was a big turkey. I saw it.
talking up a storm.
So I was just saying that an activity kind of with a shared focus can actually help guide
Yes.
interaction and reduce the need for masking sometimes
Yeah,
if the activity is actually the guide.
yes.
Yeah.
Lore, ¿tenés alguna pregunta para leerles?
am, a los padres, pero bueno, no sé puntualmente si quieren contar alguna experiencia de cómo abordan el tema con los padres de adolescentes o de niños pequeños recientemente diagnosticados.
So one, there are many different kind of resources, but one is a colleague of ours in the UK who has a methodology it's called Pandas Online, and she equates pandas to being autistic individuals in a world of like brown bears and polar bears. So it's this really
For kids more.
lovely way to describe diversity and different people who on the surface, everybody's a bear in this video, have different needs, but there are modules. She has modules for cubs, very young children, and helping families understand, because families might not have the knowledge. And then there is the original modules, which were for kind of early elementary school individuals. And now she's expanded it into an unpacking autism, and it is designed specifically for adolescents to go in and explore on their own. And she is doing research with the University of Kent, I believe, and the results are really positive. What'd you say?
I forgot that she
Yeah,
just
so
did that.
the research is really quite positive. And for those of you who are supporting autistic adolescents who you're really hoping to help them understand themselves and kind of find a peer group who have similar experiences, there's another group out of the UK called Spectrum Gaming. Andy is the lead there, and he has a website, autismunderstood.co.uk, I think. If you can get through it through Spectrum Gaming, it is designed by autistic youth for autistic youth. So it's all in English, but I know sometimes you can put different filters on websites to get translations and things. We were thrilled to be asked by a group of autistic young people to write about two different topics.
These autistic teens asked us to write about topics, and then they edited it and made the changes they desired to it. It was so fun.
It was
But
very fun.
it is a great resource.
And there's a ton of information, and everything is written either by autistic youth or has been curated by autistic youth. And lots of memes, short videos. Again, like I'm not sure about the accessibility features and the translation to Spanish, but it has a lot of very useful content on it for adolescents.
Gracias. ¿Podrían escribir en el chat los dos nombres las dos nombres que hablaron? El PANS, no sé cuánto del principio, y este de Autismo Understood, así lo podemos encontrar. Bueno,
Pandas.
bueno, ya estamos en hora. La verdad que las felicitamos por este trabajo que están haciendo. Muy felices de poder escucharlas y bueno, y que puedan contar esto que recaudaron en su investigación. Así que bueno, muchas gracias y gracias a todos los que participaron, gracias a los sponsors, a Rakupets, a Decir Salud, a Fundación Garraham y a las intérpretes que
Yes, thank
hacen
you.
posible que estemos acá.
Sí,
Ahí también quieren que escriban en el chat sus redes sociales, ¿sí? La de
ahí
Autismo
están
Digital.
poniendo.
Buenísimo,
Sí, ahí están poniendo.
buenísimo.
So we're
Bueno,
primarily on Facebook for social media, and then our website. Those are our two most active places to find us. So
Hold on. That's the Facebook. Facebook is in the chat.
and you put the website in earlier.
The website is autismlevelup.com. I'll put it in once more. There we go.
Buenísimo, buenísimo.
Thank
Bueno,
you.
muchísimas gracias, Jack. Muchísimas gracias, Amy. Y bueno, vamos a verlos pronto, ¿sí? Vamos a seguir escuchándolas. Le prometemos a todos que va a haber una segunda charla.
sí, sí, sí.
Ahí les están poniendo cosas muy lindas en el chat. Y
Probably everyone wants to hear about grocery
Grocery store.
stores.
Thank you for being here, and thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you to everybody who stayed and listened to us, and a big thank you to the interpreters.
muchísimas gracias. Chao,
Gracias y
chao,
hasta
Amy.
pronto. Gracias
Gracias
a
a todos.
todos. No sé si quieren sacar una foto, Mary.
Ah, dale. Si quieren abrir las cámaras.
podemos sacar una foto antes de despedirnos. Ahí
Sacamos
nos
una foto todos, los que quieran
sí,
abrir las cámaras.
ahí vamos. Una, gracias.
Buenísimo. Muchas gracias. Gracias, Amy. Gracias, Jack. Gracias,
Hasta
Vero.
pronto. Gracias a
Chao,
todos
chao.
por compartir este día. Chau, chau.
Muchas gracias. Chao, chao.
Chau.